All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest in this topic. My name is Jeannie Love. I'm a neurodiversity consultant and coach with over 20 years of experience teaching and coaching individuals with ADHD and autism. Through my business, Beyond Coaching, I partner with organizations to unlock the strengths of their neurodivergent employees. My goal is to help you understand and apply practical strategies for supporting cognitive diversity in your organization. This is Neurodiversity Insights in 20. It's designed to give you impactful and manageable information in a brief amount of time with a little bit of extra time for Q&A at the end. So feel free to bring me any challenges, case studies, or questions to the session. Our session today is why your workplace is harder to work in than it should be. Because here's the truth. Your business is missing out on untapped potential because our systems aren't built for neurodivergent employees. So you're seeing things like missed deadlines or communication gaps or what looks like underperforming talent. And it's easy to assume these are individual performance issues. But what if the real issue is the way we structure work? So through these sessions, we're going to break down some of what's happening, why it matters, and give you some small shifts to help you create a more productive and engaged workplace. Here's our goals for the session. My goals for you is that you'll see what you've been missing. So recognize the hidden challenges holding back some of the people on your teams, their performance, their engagement, and ultimately their retention. And that you'll leave with some practical wins, some high impact strategies that you can apply immediately with no major overhauls, no extra budget, just smart, simple, small adjustments. So today we're going to focus on two aspects of neurodiversity that you may or may not have heard of. The first is executive functioning, and then the second is sensory sensitivities. So we'll start with executive functioning. Harvard University defines executive functions as the skills or executive function skills as the mental processes that enable us to plan, focus our attention, remember instructions, and juggle multiple tasks successfully. Okay, I'm going to read that again. Executive function skills are the mental processes that enable us to plan, focus attention, remember instructions, and juggle multiple tasks successfully. Or, as I like to think about it or describe it, executive functions are the skills needed to get things done. And I'm going to walk through this list with you. But if you think about, let's imagine that we've set a meaningful goal. We need to break it down into its steps needed to achieve that goal, prioritize the work that needs to be done, get started on each step along the way, manage the distractions that will ultimately come at us, meet the deadlines that we've set, regulate our emotions that pop up along the way, organize our thoughts, organize our stuff to stay on track, manage time. We need to be able to think flexibly because ultimately we'll need to shift and change plans as we go through the process. We'll have multiple schedules and projects going on at the same time. And then we'll need to be able to be persistent anytime that it gets extra challenging or boring. All of this goes into executive functioning. So let's think about some of the people that we might encounter on our teams and what it might look like to struggle with executive functions. So you might have encountered someone who's frustratingly inconsistent. So one day they're hyper-focused and they're crushing it, and the next day they're struggling to finish even the most basic and mundane tasks. You might think that it's about intelligence or motivation or work ethic, but I'm here to encourage you to consider it could be the way that their brains work, the way that their brain organizes, prioritizes, and shifts between tasks. It might also look like that person who's always busy, but they're not really making progress or completing anything. Maybe they forget tasks or lose track of deadlines or freeze when things pile up, kind of panic. You might also have seen someone who thrives under pressure. They're the procrastinators, but always pull it out at the end or during a crisis, but they fall apart during routine work. But that is considered, that feels kind of mundane. We have a tendency to think that maybe they're lazy, they don't care, they're not trying, they overreact, or we have these feelings of like, why can't they just get it together? And it's very possibly literally due to the way that their brains are wired. So I'm going to give you a couple of strategies, and then after that, we'll have a moment for you to pause and to think about what this means for the people on your teams. But here are some of the strategies. Let me just start by saying this is a very high level overview, a very brief introduction to what executive functions are, how they impact your people, and just a few of the strategies to start to consider. So this is not a very in-depth explanation. I just want to be very explicit and clear about that. Here are some strategies that you might consider. I do a lot of work with mindfulness with my clients and in my consulting work as well. So teach them to check in with themselves regularly. So this is an opportunity to pause and check in with my brain. Do I feel really focused? Do I feel like I know exactly what I need to do? Or is it feeling a little chaotic? How's my body feeling? Do I feel grounded and centered and calm? Or do I feel a little busy and chaotic? If so, what do I need to do? Do I need to move? Do I need to just breathe for a moment? I did a project with some frontline managers who had some of their direct reports using the skill, and they would just text them regularly throughout the day. Hey, just to check in with yourself. No response required, just a chance for them to check in on what they need. You might also provide a partner to check in on tasks. So if they're having trouble with timelines, let's just, without judgment, so we want to create a system where it doesn't feel like they're being judged, but just, all right, how are we on this? The deadline is coming up. Let's just do a check-in on where we are. Or that they can check in with you. And can I make sure that I'm not missing anything? Am I on track? And then they can get some feedback from you. I also teach beginning and ending procedures. So when you're getting ready to start a task, a very mindful, purposeful, thoughtful, okay, I'm going to open the tabs that I need. I'm going to make sure that I've got my water and my glasses. My phone notifications are off. It's upside down. I've minimized the tabs that I don't need. And you might even say out loud to yourself, okay, I'm ready to start this task. And then sometimes there are challenges transitioning between tasks. And so an ending procedure where you take note of where you're leaving this task, close all of the tabs, maybe even get up to get a drink of water or make a cup of coffee, some kind of movement. Then you come back. Okay, let's get everything set up again. Open the tabs that I need. I am ready to begin the next thing. It sounds like it could take some time, but once you get into the rhythm of this, it actually moves very slowly. It's just that it is a mindful, conscious, purposeful process. And I worked with a mine. I did a project with a mine, and one of their philosophies was to go slow, to go fast. So for them, this is an issue of safety. Safety is so important at the mine. So they want to be slow and thoughtful about everything that they're doing so that they don't make mistakes. It can be the same. We can teach this to our team as well. Take your time to get organized. Take your time to set up the process. Take your time to close the task, file things correctly, because ultimately at the end, it's going to prevent us from making mistakes. Okay, I'm going to pause here. for a minute for you to think about your department, the people on your team, the work that they do on a daily basis. How might having challenges with executive functions challenge them? And what is maybe just one strategy that you think you could use right now? And I'll give you a moment to think. Okay, wrap up your thinking. And we'll move on to talking about sensory overload or sensory overwhelm or sensory sensitivities. This is overwhelmed by all the information coming in through our senses. So what we see, what we hear, what we smell, clothing that we're wearing. Or, for example, I have a guy on my team who explained to me once that he's incredibly sensitive to the chair that he's sitting in. If the chair isn't just the right chair, it is incredibly distracting to him. And so when he was working in schools, he would buy the chair that he needed so that he was able to focus. Or with my daughter, she finds clothing, she's incredibly sensitive to the clothing that she wears. And so I actually wonder if when it comes time for her to be in the workplace, if the jobs that she has available to her will be limited because of the required clothing. For me, I think about it like being in Disney World with a young child. It's a long, hot day, standing in lines. There's the sights and the sounds, and the kid who's had too much sugar and is tired of standing in line. And we're all hot and thirsty, and she wants more money for the more expensive thing in the gift shop. And if you can relate to that at all, then you know that at the end of the day, we're all very short tempered. Our systems just can't take it anymore. And so for some people, this is what's going on. It's at a daily basis. They don't necessarily have, their brains don't have the ability to tune some of this sensory information out. So they are already in a heightened state of stress just by being at work. So we can think about people who might be sensitive to fluorescent lighting. That's a real thing. People notice flickering, and it's incredibly distracting and overwhelming. Or if they're in an open office space, so the sounds of all the people, the conversations, the moving, the clicking of the mouse, and all those things, that can be overwhelming to some people. The constant notifications for me, so if I have notifications popping up my phone and instant messaging popping up on my computer, that can be very overwhelming and distracting. So try to imagine focusing while your brain is processing all of this at once. This is what sensory overload feels like. It might look like an employee who's really great in one-on-one meetings or in small group meetings. They contribute, they share, they brainstorm, they've got lots of great ideas. But in a larger environment with more people in an open space with lots of those distractions going on, they might shut down. This might be someone who avoids social events, and they might even kind of disappear or wander off midday looking for a quiet place to get away. Someone who seems disengaged, but is really just overstimulated by all that's going on around them. And here's the thing that I always like to share in my sessions is that it's not necessarily just a neurodivergent issue, but we can all be a little overwhelmed in bad sensory environments. And My daughter and I, one time, were taking a train into Washington, D.C. And I don't take a train very often. This was, just a touristy thing, and we were headed in to see the monuments. And so we accidentally got into the quiet car. And as I was looking at the sign on the window, I realized this and I showed it to my daughter who was sitting in front of me and who generally likes to move around in her seat and talk about what she sees and how excited she is and whatever. But as soon as she saw the rules, she just kind of settled into her chair and enjoyed the ride. And I looked around at the people in the quiet car, and this was not a morning commuter train. So it wasn't packed, but there were quite a few people in this car. And I was thinking, I would expect that they are not all neurodivergent, but that a lot of us crave some time away from all the stimulation. A lot of us want to just be in the quiet car. So here are some strategies that you might consider. So first, offer breaks before we lose it. So we're all really going to be like, okay, that's it. I can't take anymore. I'm out of here. I got to get away from this. And it often takes a while to recover. What if we learned how to notice when that was coming on and just take a shorter break before we lose it? And can we offer break spaces that are lower stimulation spaces? So often our break spaces are in these common areas, but is there a little getaway space that we can have softer lighting, no conversation, no phones, so people aren't watching videos, and it's just a space where we can, no smells from the kitchen or from food, so we can just calm down for a couple of minutes. And then also, can we be more clear about social expectations for those on our team that don't love social gatherings? Is it really expected for you to show up to celebrate birthdays or engagements or baby showers? Or is that something that it would be okay to miss and we can do that without judgment? Or if we're having sort of an optional working lunch kind of thing, is it really optional or is it really expected for you to be there? Some people don't pick up on those social cues as easily and they may show up to all of them thinking that they're all expected, which leads to more stress and more overwhelm. So let's be really explicit and really clear about which of those we want our people to attend. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a minute. Think about your department, how it runs, what it might be like to have sensory sensitivities. Is there any of these strategies that you can add? Okay, wrap up your thought because the big idea here is you don't need a complete overhaul to make a difference. Big impact can come from small, thoughtful, intentional shifts. So if you want any help with this, please reach out. Let's chat about you, your department, your organization. But if you're here right now and you want to stay for a few minutes of Q&A, I'll stop the recording and we can have a chat. Otherwise, thank you all for your attention. Thank you for being here. Have a great day.